I want to share with you the strategies that helps me as an international master to win at chess throughout my entire chess career. I hope it's gonna be instructive and you're gonna get a lot out of it, so let's get started. Hi guys and welcome to Journey into Grandmasters, a place where you can improve every aspect of your chess game. Let me share with you my games that I have played recently in a tournament and show you how you can use this unspoken strategy to win at chess. I have played as white against a pretty strong opponent, FIDE Meister, Cedric Oberhofer, and the game started with d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, a king's Indian defense, a very popular opening, but this video is not really about the openings, it's about the strategy that you should use in your games. d5, black is trying to fight for the center. I played b3 to avoid some main lines and to get a playable position because, well, that's the first thing I need if I'm playing against slightly low-rated players. I don't want to get into the main theoretical lines because, well, it might be difficult to play for win afterwards. So I'm playing b3 here and then c5. So of course my diagonal is pretty weak here. So black is using this time. You can never play something like d5 because the knight will go away and you're gonna lose your rook. So the right move here is to bishop to b2 to just cover this diagonal, and then queen goes to b6, attacking it. I played queen to c1, defending this bishop, and then I'm still having enough defenders for this d4 pawn, and the queen might also support the c5 pawn here. I mean, the c pawn, which can go to c5 potentially with a tempo. Takes, and bishop d7. So there are a lot of different plans for black to develop. Bishop d7 and knight c6 is one of them. You can develop the rook to d8, just knight to c6 straight away, knight to d7 and to c5. And so I played knight to d2. So the first thing you always want to do in the opening is to develop all of your pieces. That's like must that you have because well, if you're not developing all of your pieces, then basically you don't have chances to create enough threats for your opponent, which is going to be the main part of the strategy I want to share with you today. So I played knight to d2, knight to c6, and now e3. I'm just stabilizing here in the center and making sure that if he takes, I'm gonna take it with the bishop, with the tempo, then the rook is free to go to the b file, and yeah, the position seems to be good. Rook f to c1. Of course, I have here positional risk. The c4 pawn is isolated, so if a lot of pieces are going off the board, then of course it might be the case that this pawn is going to be a horrible weakness. But for now, it's not that simple for black, because if you exchange the knights, for example, I'm gonna have those powerful bishops there, and it's not that simple to deal with it. So I played rook d1, just finishing my development, queen to c5. Well, it's kind of an interesting move trying to stop the c pawn altogether, to block it, and maybe this queen is going to h5. And that was pretty scary for me because I thought that, well, queen h5, knight h4, bishop h3 maybe before that, and then my king might be in trouble. So I play the move knight to e2, and the idea is when the queen is going to h5, I can play knight f4 with a tempo, attacking this queen, and then basically the attack wouldn't be possible, and the knight might go to d5 in the end of the day. So my opponent played bishop g4, which is a very good move here, just pinning the knight and, well, creating some difficulties for me. So I played knight to b3, once again with a tempo. So with a tempo means that I am attacking the queen and black can't just continue the plan, which could have been, for example, queen to h5. Here, well, queen h5 is still possible, but once again, knight f4 with a tempo. So I'm attacking my opponent, I'm creating a threat, and that's, by the way, the strategy I wanted to share with you. So you always want to put some pressure on your opponent. You want to create as many threats as possible. You want to make the life uncomfortable for him, because then the chances are that at some point he's gonna collapse and not gonna find the right solution is much higher. If you are not creating the threats, if you are just making normal, calm moves, then, well, it's gonna be also simpler for your opponent. So I'm attacking this queen now. The queen goes back to b6. So once again, if queen goes to h5, I have knight f4, attacking the queen. Once again, the queen has to go to h6. And even though it's completely playable, but I guess my opponent thought that the queen would be kind of weirdly placed here, and the attack doesn't seem to be that dangerous with this knight on f4. I can just play rook d2, for example. So he played, for that reason, queen to b6 back, which is also completely normal. Rook d2 now protecting this knight and getting rid of the pin. a5, and knight goes to d4. So once again, creating some pressure. So you always want to give your opponent an impression that you are coming after him, that you are creating some difficulties. So for example, here c5 is on my agenda. Even though black wants to play a4, I don't think it's that dangerous. So it has been played. I'm taking here on c6, so c5 was another alternative, but I'm taking here on c6 first, and then I'm playing bishop to d4. Once again, every move is a tempo. That's my goal. And the point is, if you play c5, I'm just taking it, and at the end of the day, you're gonna have a problem with this rook. For example, rook takes, I can just take it here on c5 first, and then take on a8, and well, you're some material down. So that is not really possible, but otherwise this queen has to go, queen c7 has been played, and then knight goes to c5. And I was very, very optimistic about this position. I felt like all of my pieces are active. Objectively, the evaluation is equal. Like I don't have any advantage in this position. According to the engine, that was incredible for me, but that's the truth. But nobody cares about the exact computer evaluation throughout the practical game. What's important is that you are putting this pressure, that you are making your opponent feel uncomfortable, and yeah, it's difficult to solve all of the issues, and sooner or later that should pay out. So knight to d7. I just took it on d7 because, well, the problem for me is that I can't really keep all of the pieces there. The knight is hanging. There are some difficulties along the diagonal. So I decided to take it. You can't take it back with the queen because of bishop takes g7 and discover attack. So bishop takes c5. I want to make sure that this pawn never goes forward, and I always have a target to attack. So once again, it's all about putting the pressure. Bishop to e8, yeah, you could see that even though black's position is pretty solid, it's still not that comfortable to play. It's pretty passive, and well, I always have some opportunities to create new threats. So I took the bishop, I played queen to c3, check, f6, and now rook a to d1. I'm doubling along the d file and trying to be active here. And what's cool about this position is that the engine actually says it's better for black, but well, I was just trying to create new threats with every move, and then my strategy in the end of the day paid me off. So let's see how it happened. Rook d8. Of course, black is trying to exchange some pieces because, well, when you don't have enough space, then you are trying to exchange as many pieces to get more space because, well, it's gonna be simpler. So takes, takes, takes. Now bishop f3. I'm just making sure that the queen can't go there, and I'm still attacking here. There are some targets for me to attack. My bishop is more active than black's bishop, so I was pretty optimistic about this position. But black has found a very good resource here, queen to b8, and suddenly queen b1 is a threat. The a2 pawn is under attack, and well, I also have some weaknesses. So I decided to play a3, and now a very important moment in the game, I guess that was critical, this move queen to b3. So of course you can give a check first, but the point is, let's say queen b1, queen b3, and here this endgame doesn't seem to be that great for me as I thought in the beginning, because this bishop is coming to f5 and then the pawn is going to be promoted. So yeah, I wasn't sure about that, but my opponent played queen to b5 instead, and that gave me an opportunity to first make sure that my king is safe, there are no checks, and then after bishop f7 I also played h4, bishop went to e6, and I played queen to d4. And this position is already very good for white because I'm attacking this pawn, I'm attacking this pawn, my queen is in the center of the board, controlling pretty much everything. So yeah, I was very optimistic here. Bishop to f7, and black doesn't really have any moves to go. So I guess this queen b3 was the best opportunity for black to activate the queen somehow. Now I'm playing g4, I'm creating some problems. Once again, so the strategy is always to put pressure on your opponent. So I'm playing here g4, g5, and I'm attacking the f6 pawn, and then the king is going to be exposed. And so, yeah, my opponent feels more and more pressure. So he decides to create some counterplay to be active instead of just staying passively waiting for me to win the game. So he plays bishop c4, which is a very interesting resource. So the bishop is going this side, and yeah, trying to say that my king is also not that safe there. I played g5, just saying, okay, I'm going on with my plan, show me what you have. He played bishop to f1, into g3. I thought that that's the safest option because I'm controlling this h3 square. For example, if you go back, then this bishop can go to h3, and then maybe the queen comes to f1. Although it's also not the end of the world, you can still play king to h2, but I felt like king g3 should be the move. queen to b8, and my main idea was to play queen to f4 because I thought, well, the endgame, the bishop's endgame is always winning for me due to those weaknesses, and also my king would be incredibly active, so my opponent shouldn't go for it, and that was the true evaluation of the position. Queen to c8 has been played instead, and now bishop to g4, creating another threat. So try to make every one of your moves with a threat. Then your opponent's life is gonna be tough, and you're gonna win much more games. Queen to a6, queen to c7. Now, yet again, another threat attacking this e7 pawn, and basically the position is already hopeless for black because, well, also this f6 pawn is under attack as the pawn is pinned, so there are so many difficult problems for black. King to f7, I just took it on f6, the pawn can take, so the king has to take, but then the king is incredibly exposed, and there are a forced checkmate here. So let me show you how I did it. Queen to f4, king to g7, queen to e5 check, attacking this e7 pawn, king to h6, because if you try to defend it somehow, king to f7, then there is bishop e6 and queen is coming to h8 with a checkmate. So my opponent played king to f8, king to h6, sorry, but I'm not taking it immediately. I'm trying to do everything with a check. So I'm playing queen to g5, king to g7, queen takes, king h6, and queen f8 checkmate. So you can see that even though throughout the whole game I didn't really have an advantage objectively according to the engine, but I was always putting the pressure on the opponent, and that is, I feel, the best strategy to win a chess, especially if you are playing against a slightly lower rated opponents, because, well, you're making it uncomfortable for them, and sooner or later, well, the chances are high that they are gonna collapse. Now, if you want to improve your chess tremendously in the next 7 days, take a look at this video, as I have prepared a detailed plan for you so you can bring your chess to the next level.